Are we having a party here? I don't know.
Welcome to Polishing Profits. Join our 3 industry experts boasting 140 years of experience as they unlock building service contracting secrets that can revolutionize your business.
Welcome to another episode. If you can believe it or not, we must be running at least 40 episodes by now. Anybody know the count?
High 30s, I think. 38, something like that.
Well, I was going to say, Ed's going to tell us what our revenue is this year, but that's what John's going to do. So I'm going to introduce our Polishing Profits podcast. John, we're going to have to get you a regular seat at the table here.
Yeah, I know it.
Some great stuff and love having you.
Yeah,
So
great.
How healthy is your business? How healthy is? What do you mean by healthy? Well, he's going to tell you what healthy is. Healthy is as healthy does. I'm not sure that's out of some movie or I don't know. We'll just ramble on here. But he's going to go over some matrix, why you need to know the financial health of your business at all times. And it's neglected. I mean, all 4 of us here have done consulting probably collectively for 75 years. And how many times we hear, I'm not really sure about my current financial condition when we ask. So, Ed, are you coming back? Did you get mad?
I hope so. Hold on. Okay, let's see.
It's kind of like Poltergeist.
Yeah.
He's back.
There we go.
Well, John, with that illustrious, nonsensical introduction, I'm going to let you have the floor for something serious. Let's go.
All right. Sounds good, guys. And again, it's a pleasure to be here. And the topic I'm going to talk about is how healthy is your business? And we as people go to our doctors, we get checkups, we get physicals, and we do all the things we knew to extend our life. And we also do maintenance on our cars, take that in, change the oil, and do whatever we got to do. But most people know the health of their Tesla more than they know the health of their business. And so this is really a critical issue. I don't think there's anything more critical than making sure that your business is healthy and growing and not dying. So what I did, the topic I got here is I want to go over a couple steps is how healthy is your business? Well, and we've talked about this before, but we are in a business health crisis. Most small business people, they start their business, want to grow, live a good lifestyle, and experience a relaxing, profitable retirement. But for most small business owners, that's not really going to happen. And what I want to do is share some of the statistics of the state of small business. And keeping the medical, mode, I want to discuss the business dreaded diseases that cause most business fatalities. Then help you identify those diseases in your business and what remedies can you do to improve the health of your business. And I want to start off by some of these statistics. 30.7 million small businesses in the U.S. They employ 59.9 million or 47.3% of the total workforce. Only 40% actually turn a profit of small business. The average age of a business owner is 50.3 years old and makes 21% more than the average U.S. population, but for most, not very long. The average life expectancy of a human is 76.1 years. And like I said, we got all the medical preventive measures and x-rays and prescriptions that we need.
Yeah, it's like a part-time job just to stay alive.
Yeah, it is. And it's expensive,
It is. It's a part-time job.
Yeah.
And then but a vehicle has a lifespan of 12 to 20 years. And we got all the alert signs, preventive maintenance, dealer, change your oil, and everything else. But a small business, the average lifespan is 8.5 years. But what measures are we taking to measure the health and how critical is our business? When could it have a heart attack and die and all those things? But there's no real measure. There are measures to identify and remedy those, but people just aren't using them.
Yeah, like turn your head and cough, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of different data, but 20% of small businesses die the first year, 40% year 2, 50% in year 5. And I think most of them are closed before year 9. So the entrepreneur that came up with this dream and borrowed money and cashed in on the HELOC and SBA loans and went into debt, it's their dream of self-employment and high incomes really crashes with a 50% survival rate in year 5 or actually closed before year 9. I think this is what's out there. And like you guys know, when you go into these small businesses, people are running the day to day and they're doing their thing, but they just don't have a handle on the vital signs that are coming and some of the health issues for their quote business. And they just go by the wayside, and all of a sudden they get into a bind. So what I got here is the dreaded diseases for a small business. And, no doubt, if you don't have a product marketing or sales plan, you're going to have an issue. Do you have a viable product? What's your competition? Have you done secret shopping to find out if your price points are right? Have you really dig into your costs? All this stuff has to be done up front. But most people spend a lot of time building the infrastructure, getting the lease done, buying the equipment, hiring employees. But a lot of them don't realize when that door opens, there's got to be sales. And
Right.
there's no more important line than the top line of an income statement of what sales are coming in. And one guy in a corporate environment that I worked with, all these support, accounting and engineering, everybody was complaining about salespeople and everything. And the senior vice president of sales told me, just remember this, John. He says, nothing happens until you sell something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a, pretty critical thing. And I'm sure you guys have heard that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where I really see this happen, franchise is a perfect example where the franchise people are good salespeople and they sell the franchise and you put the money down and they got this perception that everything's just going to come rolling in because they're going to get them all set up. And what happens, the door opens and, they might get some referrals and some leads from some franchise advertising, but for the most part, you got to get out there and build business. When you do set up a business plan, one guy told me, who's a business consultant, he says, when you put your plan together, come up with the most conservative numbers you can think of and then cut them in half. And, and it really,
You're talking about for your goals, your sales goals?
yeah, well, exactly. Because, when you put a business plan, and I saw this in SCORE and some of these places where, everybody starts off, well, I'm going to do, 500,000 the first year and million in the second year and 2 million the third and all that kind of stuff. And they kind of build their plan around that. But yeah, setting your goals is it. But even when it comes to expenses and everything, increase your expenses and be really conservative on your top number, because that's going to be worst case, and anything above that's going to be a victory, So the second dreaded disease is probably one of the worst, and that's cash flow. Either running out of cash and lack of resources to acquire cash. It's amazing where accountants will provide income statements and balance sheets, but I don't know of anybody that I've ever seen an accountant provide a cash flow statement and anybody's really using it. I'm sure there's people that do, but the majority of people, they, it comes in and it goes out, and they really are not monitoring that until it really comes up and, really bites them. Are you guys seeing that? What are you seeing in your businesses? How many people really monitor cash on a daily basis or weekly?
No, I'm
A
not
lot of
seeing
my
it.
clients, I can tell you, don't. I can
Right.
say one thing, and we were fortunate to run a very profitable business, but our statement of cash flows came out every week with a projection from our CFO as to what cash was coming in, when it was expected, what was going out. AP and AR were matched in with the statement of cash flows, and
Wow.
we knew everything we had to have every week to operate, whether we were banking money or looking for money. So we were very unique that way.
Yeah, you're really up and above, most people that, that I talk to.
I think the AR report is one of the key reporting tools as well, and it's often overlooked. because there's a lot of cash sitting in the AR report. And if you
Right.
don't stay on top of that, and for instance, in our industry, when you see a trend, one account going behind and behind and behind, and we're still doing new billings, meaning we're still cleaning them, and they might be close to 90 days without an explanation or a reason, then that's got trouble written all over it. Your chances of getting your money when you get to 90 days are slim and none. And we're continuing to clean and put forth labor monies to do an account that's a dead end. So monitoring that AR report, I think, is really critical.
The other thing I've seen is that, people feel like they can't call up and try to collect. Well, it's the customer and we don't want to hurt their feeling. And you know what I'm saying? Trying to get the money that's over 90 days. And I had a computer supply store in California, and one of our clients was Motown Records. And this guy would call up and order probably $1,000 worth of printer ribbons at every time. And he never paid, and we'd get 60, 90, 120 days. And we finally would get paid. Well, one day he called up. He says, I need these printer ribbons right away. I need them shipped out today. And my assistant said, well, we just can't do it. You're past due on your account. So they switched them back to me. He says, look, man, I'm with Motown Records and I need my ribbons today. And I said, well, I'm Shamrock Computer and I'm not shipping them until we get paid. But you're right, Sharon. It's accounts receivable is a sleeper,
Yeah.
And that would make such a big impact on your business, but you got to collect. Is there a lot of accounts receivable in your business? Is it, of course, commercial accounts?
They can run for a long time.
Yeah, well, AR is the name of the game because it's all recurring revenue, John.
I've seen several people.
Right. Yeah,
they can get bad. Yeah, they can get back behind in a hurry.
Yeah.
Our DSO was like days sales outstanding was, except for 2 accounts, was 15 days.
You're running a tight ship, which is up and above most. The next dreaded disease is pricing and cost, especially in this environment where we're not capturing the true cost and adjusting prices accordingly. And I know I've come across this, I'm sure you guys have too, where you get a little bit of 5% here and a 3% there, and well, it's not that much. And then it gets into your system, and then you're not raising the price. So it's definitely impacting your bottom line. Mm-hmm. And in this day of inflation, I mean, that's really, again, something that's very common. And I got an example of that I'll touch in a minute. Then obviously budgeting, managing operational costs, just day to day, put it on a spreadsheet. And this is something that, cash flow I'd almost do daily, but definitely a monthly income statement and compare budget items. And then, maybe the balance sheet you might do quarterly. But again, those things, people aren't watching them and they just get themselves in trouble. But businesses have 3 health reports with vital signs to identify and monitor the health of their business. But like we said, most companies just don't use them. And I've kind of picked up this medical theme, but a balance sheet is a picture of the health of a business after a physical. What are the assets versus liabilities? How much do you own and how much do you owe? Increased debt can lead to intensive care. You just building up that debt. You basically are at the mercy of the banks, or it could cut off your source of capital because you got a high debt equity ratio. And, if you don't have the cash to cover your payables, that's going to just impact your business. The key vital signs with a balance sheet is the current ratio. What are your total current assets over your current liabilities? And that indicator should be about 2 to 1. Gives you enough of a comfort that with your cash and accounts receivable and inventory and other current assets, you would be able to cover your current liability. So that gives you enough of a cushion. And then just had a situation last week. Guy wanted to list his business and it showed no cash, but it showed $117,000 of total assets. And he only had $39,000 of payables. Well, under normal conditions, I thought that would be good, except when I dug into the balance sheet, the $117,000 was a notes receivable from the owner borrowing cash out of the business.
Oh.
It's a weird deal how if you borrow money from your own business, it shows a receivable to pay it back. Well, that didn't mean anything. But, so if you don't have cash, that's a problem. But that gives you some kind of a quick measurement of the stability of your company and the availability of assets over liabilities. The quick ratio is current cash equivalents over current liabilities, and that's cash and accounts receivable. Those two things should be at a ratio of 1-to-1, because that gives you, if you had to do a quick cash payoff payables, at least you've got something along those lines, but a 1-to-1 would work. Then with your business physical, you can get into leverage with a balance sheet. What's the total liabilities over total assets? And basically that is what percentage of your assets are provided by debt. And obviously the lower the better. You want to keep it, the debt under 50% or lower if possible. But you want to monitor that, because that kind of stuff sneaks in there when you add a little bit of debt here and, the assets go down, and people don't see that a lot of times till it's too late. If you have inventory turns is really critical. That's where you have the cost of goods sold over your level of inventory. So if you've got 250,000 and you got $1 million in inventory, you got a 0.25, which means 25% of your inventory is turning every year. But if you got 2 million with 250,000, then it's 12.5% is turning every year. And you need to look at that, because I get a lot of people. I got a music store right now that I'm talking to, and their financials are horrible. And it's going to be an asset sale, but they get $525,000 worth of inventory. And I mean, it's pianos and organs and stuff that's probably obsolete. So measuring that, it gives you some kind of an idea of the quality of your inventory and what could be obsolete. I would say on the balance sheet, review that quarterly and at least get an idea of where it's trending. Now, you get to the income statement. This is a measure if your business health is improving or declining.
Mm-hmm.
And I would definitely look at this at least monthly. As I said before, the top line is the most important. You can cover a lot of sins if your sales are high, but you can't cut costs to prosperity. You know what I'm saying? You really got to keep that sales number. If it's moving in the right direction, that's a good sign. You need to monitor that. And like you said, Mark, some people don't know, but they should know. Then you got the cost of goods sold and gross profit. And, this is a big indicator because, price creep can come in there and somebody says, well, I'm only going to give you like 2% increase. We need to raise our prices in 5%. Well, that gross profit drives everything on your fixed costs. And, that changing a little bit could make a big impact on your finance. And, when you budget and then budgeting and managing all costs, you really need to do that because things can change. And I did an example here where if you have 100,000 in sales and 60,000 in cost of goods sold, and then you've got 40,000 in gross profit, and then all your other fixed expenses are 25,000. You have $15,000 on the bottom line, or you have a 15% net income. But let's say the inflation sneaks in there. Let's say you get, let's say you get a cost of increase in your cost of goods sold, and then you get another 5% on all your fixed costs, which is not heard of in this environment. Well, you go from 100,000 to 63,000 cost of goods sold, and then your gross income of 37,000, and your fixed costs, went up to 26,250, and you're netting $10,750. So basically, you went from a 15% margin to a 10.75% margin, only because somebody along the line snuck a little here and a little there. And a lot of, you could have someone in purchasing that just accepts that, but nobody plugs that in to a cash flow statement or an income statement with what if this stuff increased here and how would that impact our bottom line?
Yeah.
But you can see a 5% increase could drop your as a 28% drop in net income.
Right. And I was going to say in our industry that cost of goods is our key. That's like the Mac Daddy of everything we watch because that's so variable. And the bigger as your company grows and you have more and more and more employees, the greater opportunity you have for that number to go haywire on you. If you're not carefully monitoring that labor, you have 10 employees who you go over their time allotted budget by a half an hour a week. That's a lot of money, and that will skew your cost of goods sold figure horrendously and then filter domino effect down the entire report. So that's like the number one number that we really monitor very carefully, that cost of goods, because that's the most controllable one we have.
I'm sure in your case too that when obviously there's going to be hiccups somewhere and you got to pay somebody time and a half or you got to pay a premium to get it done, and boy, that can do a number, you know.
That does, because the margins are very tight. There's no wiggle room or not much wiggle room in that cost of goods sold number.
Yeah.
Well, that's
but
where
you
the
can see
category
just
comes
the
in.
impact of that. And then everybody should know what their break-even point is, you know, and it's really not that complicated. You take your fixed cost and divide it by your gross margin percentage. And by doing that, you'll know that, you know, where am I breaking even or where am I losing money? In this case, you know, the fixed costs were like, I think 25,000 and the gross margin was 40%. And when I divide those, it comes up like 62,500 is the break even, which means I can, you know, I can go down from 100 to 62,000 and still, you know, still break even. But I think that's a good indicator that everybody should have that too. What is your break even? The break even, I think, is critical.
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned, and I didn't bring this up, but it's also a good, and that's receivables turnover ratio is your net credit sales over the average accounts receivable. And it's the time the company can turn receivables into cash over a given time. And like you mentioned, that's something that they can see, how often are you turning receivables? That can be kind of a complex, what are the receivables? And, you know, I see this is over 90, but this is 30. And how can you get a good indicator? So a receivables turnover ratio, I think, would be very helpful.
Okay.
Hey, John, I have a quick question for you, and the turnover, and it has to do with the aging buckets, okay? But I haven't looked this up for a while. You're active in it. But the rule of thumb or financial rule of thumb used to be when someone was over 90 days on recurring revenue, okay, so we're billing every month, your chances go to 70% of collection. And when they go to 120, you're down to 50. And after 120, your pennies on the dollar. Is there still, and I'm bringing that up to make people realize you can't be a bank. It will cost you big money because collections start getting discounted after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I think, I don't know the exact numbers, but what happens now is when you get up to 90 to 120 days, people are finding out it's just not cost effective to chase them. So they turn around to a collection agency. And then you are probably getting pennies on the dollar. But I don't think there's any doubt in my mind when it gets to 90 and 120 days, each 10 or 15 days, I think your percentage of collecting is, you know. Now, I've seen some instances where a new accounts receivable, I knew this person, they joined this company, and she made up her mind that these people are going to pay their bills. And so she got on the phone and dogged them. And it can happen if you got somebody that wants to do it, but nobody wants to do collections, you know. And I think your chances of collecting when they get that old is not very good. But
we have our problem basically is an exponential one because we serve every month. We're recurring. A lot of these people have been with you a long time. And so you have to, when you get out to 90 days, at least this has been my experience, you might get it, but you're going to wait a long time for it, or they're going to cancel you because the real problem's in their cash flow. And then they've got to cut expenses, and you're left holding the bag. I learned one of those lessons the hard way. So, balancing that recurring relationship every month, every year, with extending credit has never been a winning game for me, unless at the beginning the money's factored in, the cost of money is factored in. I'm going to pay you every 65 days. Okay, then just like a loan, that's factored into the cost of the contract.
Now, do you guys ever do, credit applications with new clients and fill it out? And can you give us 2 or 3 references that you're paying your bills? And we used to do that quite a bit, but I don't know if that's common or.
They're real small and at risk.
Well, think about this, John. We got the keys to their office.
Oh, that's true.
Think about it.
You can take the computer.
Yeah, I'm the wrong guy to stick it to.
Yeah,
you got a key to your office, and not only that, you're not around when your coffee cup gets cleaned at night.
So what do you do? Do you drink the coffee too?
Oh no! It's a perfect size for a Johnny mop.
Oh yeah. Well, I would say in your business, you'd probably turn people off here. I want you to fill this out, but I know we're in the computer business. You're talking about big bucks, and there's been early in the computer game, there's just all kinds of sharks going on. So we used to do that, but that's a challenge. But obviously, now do you take credit cards?
So we didn't have a lot of commercial clients who paid by credit card, but some whose ownership leadership wanted the points for the company, and they would pay with a credit card. But I would say a majority not.
The thing with the credit cards is on some government work where they can pay with a credit card, okay, nobody's bidding.
Oh, yeah.
There's just no bid, and they're going to put it on a card.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We never took credit cards. We were the bank.
No, that was a hassle because we had to make arrangements.
Well, then you're going to end up paying a bank fee on the credit card. So it's 6 to 1. You're probably better off to do it yourself,
Yeah, the merch fee is 2.5%, even if you've got a big account. So.
Yeah. Now, John, in the industry, it's typical for us to bill in advance of service, and that's been going on since the mid '90s. So April 1st, you're going to bill for your April work. So that's how you speed up the cash flow. Now, some don't pay for 30 days, but if you bill April 30th and then they wait 30 days, you're now 2 months out waiting on your money. And you're fronting all that.
Yeah.
So the industry went to that back in the 90s when I was not that many years into it. And I thought, why would somebody pay you before you're doing the work? But that was was the trend, and that was very common. And it still is today that you bill in advance of the service.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And is there any, you what?
Even if you speed up a few payments, it helps your cash flow.
Yeah. Is there any 2% pay in 10 days kind of stuff out there? I don't know if anybody does that anymore.
I never saw that.
Yeah.
Heard of it. I don't know anybody that ever did it, but I heard of it.
Mm-hmm. All right. And the last report is, to me, the most important. And we've talked a little bit already today, and that's the cash flow statement. And that basically measures your blood pressure. If and when are you going to run out of blood? And this, basically your sales and income and margins and all that stuff is really immaterial if you run out of cash. And I think this is what we've talked about. And most businesses go under, as we mentioned before, when they're on a growth spurt, not when they're going down. Because when they're starting to slow down, the cash comes in. A lot of small business owners say, hey, it's time to take a vacation or to buy the new car or whatever the case may be. And then when it turns around and they got to grow, they just can't get it. And as you know, banks, they don't really lend to small businesses that often. So that to me is just the most critical thing, because you just need, I know the business that I had, I didn't have anything fancy, but I made sure I at least had a Excel spreadsheet. What do I got? what's coming in, what's going out, how much cash do I have at the day, and how long can I survive if I don't sell anything? So, but those are the things that, that I think this is probably the most critical. But this is pretty much what I put together, because I really believe these areas are what can be real dangerous to a business's health. Most people are not addressing these. No, most people are not using the tools that are available to, to identify and monitor these issues. And what happens, you become a statistic, just like the ones that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So I'm sure it doesn't cover everything that could happen, but I think it does give you the critical things that you ought to be aware of.
Yeah. Awesome.
Any questions?
Very good. Very good. Thank you, John.
Ed's got his favorite saying. I'm surprised he didn't say something about running out of cash.
What's
Right.
that?
Oh, no, I had a friend that took that MBA program at Harvard, and he said some old guy came in, and he did it a couple of times, and he wrote on the board DROOC, and he'd underline it and said, listen, no matter what they teach you here at Harvard, this is the secret of business. And it was don't run out of cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that I got an undergraduate degree in business and I got a MBA, and not one time did we really go into like small business sales or, there's some finance stuff at a certain level, but it never really got down to the nitty gritty of running a business, And I think it, just takes getting out. I mean, I can't say I didn't get some benefit out of it, but most of it is just, throwing you in the pool and see if you'll survive.
No, I guess our big challenge is getting through to our owners who are guilty of one or more of these diseases. They're afflicted with them, and getting the understanding to them about how important this is and what steps to put in place, what's structured so that they don't overlook these, so that they are looking at their income statement monthly and they are reviewing their receivables weekly. I don't think is too much to review your receivables. That's your money. Somebody else is playing with. So,
well, I mean, this is the downside of having, only one priority to get more accounts. That's the way an awful lot of them are.
Yeah.
All you got to do is get more accounts. Well, wait a minute.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
you're
not the whole
right.
thing.
Like I said, if you get more accounts, you can cover a lot of sins with higher sales. I've seen this happen where the sales are booming, but it's the most inefficient system you can get, but they keep putting money to the bottom line.
Yeah.
But if there's one way to get across to these stakeholders in a business that an income statement, you're either getting healthier or you're declining. Each one of those goes into the balance sheet, which is going to be a picture of your health, 3 months from now or a month from now or whatever it is. And then that's going to just keep deteriorating. Then the debt goes up and then you're going to be at a higher risk. And I don't know whether, there's a way you could take these people and sit them down and say, let's do what if you had this and see how it's going to feed your balance sheet? Or what if you had this going up or down? And then show them this is the impact that it could have, when you're watching your costs or, monitoring your day-to-day, metrics. And I don't know whether you can sit somebody long enough to go through that or not.
Well, trying to structure them to develop some good habits. That's the key, making them develop the good habits. So they want to look at those reports. I lived for those reports. I mean, I came from a retail background, so numbers were all we knew in retail. That's how, what's your increase over last year? What's your labor? You lived by those, and you gave a report every week on where your stores were. And so that was kind of ingrained to me. I have trouble understanding how people run businesses and don't have that thinking.
I know.
They don't want to know because they're too busy.
Yeah, when I get into these discussions with clients, and it gets down to I don't like to do numbers, and a lot of people don't. It's not their bent. All of us here, you get to a certain point, you have to learn to like numbers, or you're not going to grow your business. But for those that are, you can run a couple $1,000,000 a year out of your wallet. It's just not that tough. But what I always encourage them, you don't like numbers, hire an accountant.
Yes.
Get somebody that will go into your QuickBooks, reconcile things, give you a P&L for the entire company, and hopefully you're sophisticated enough for each account you have, and know
Right.
where you are, and have them give you the report and sit you down. Oh my gosh, that's going to cost me $1,500 a month. Well, when you go to the bank and want to borrow money, or you want to buy equipment, you ran out of cash. Now you're really screwed. You can't borrow the money, and you don't have the money. Now you're waiting for somebody that's 90 days past due to come in. It's worth it. If you don't like it and it's not your talent, and I preach this constantly, go get some help. It's not that expensive. And with the software out there, there's plenty of people for it. Ed?
Yeah, good. Listen, a good accountant. I went through a whole bunch of terrible experiences with bookkeepers, and I figured out that what I need is a CPA. I need somebody that's going to lose his license if he screws up. And so that was most important to me. But what happened was I wound up with one of the top accounting firms in the city, which was referred to me by a bank president. Okay. And what they charged me was always less than the money they saved me.
Yeah.
Always. And these guys, listen,
going to go to them.
This is a long time ago, and this was $450 an hour back when that meant something. So,
well, and we've talked about this in the past, but one of the bugaboos I got with a lot of small business CPAs, their whole mission is to reduce your taxes. So they're really going in and showing that there's no income and no taxes, and trying to come up with every way to do that. And instead of really, I think, sitting down and setting up a system for them to increase taxes and, increase the value of their business and increase their opportunity to sell it at a price and increase their opportunity to get loans from the bank, it's kind of counterproductive, I guess. And the other thing I find is you get somebody that starts off with a business and they grow. Is it the E myth? I can't remember what it is. Where you hit the Y in the road, you either going to build an organization or you're going to stay the same. But when you get to this point, that's when you got to hire an accountant, build a structure, and take it from there. Otherwise, this guy who's building the business, who really likes plumbing, doesn't want to do all that stuff. Then it gets all messed up. And so do you want to be big or do you want to be small? If you want to be big, you got to, change your thinking to build a structure.
Well, as a matter of fact, I just wrote about this, and the two approaches are you going to be running like a boutique service, which will be considerably smaller than if you decide that you want to go in and you want to play the volume game.
Right.
Two different two different avenues, two different animals. So,
and I think if you don't put the proper structure in place, the guy that wants to be the big elephant, if he doesn't have it all together, he'll go broke because he's probably not going to be able to cover his overhead, So, you get to that. I see that a lot of the Y in the road. Which way do you want to go?
Yeah. And I think to both those points, I would add, if your goals are to scale your company for X number of years, wherever you want to go, don't wait till you're at the 1 million or 2 million to start taking finances seriously.
Amen.
Build your company on a solid foundation. I think that's one of the things that saved us. We started out with a focus because one of my partners early on was an accountant. And we started with a focus of tracking the numbers. And as we scaled and went, that just grew. It wasn't all of a sudden I've got $1 million worth of business. Now you're telling me I've got to track all this stuff, John, that you just talked about. And that's not much stuff, by the way. That was very good, simple explanation of what's going on.
Well, Mark,
fix it later.
Mark, your dad was a banker, so you were going to get slacked in the back of the head, right?
You wouldn't have wanted to have been at some of our early meetings. I couldn't even repeat some of the language.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the things we talked about the last time was you get to the maturation point of a business and you're going up here. They really should sell here, but it's making so much money. They say, why would I want to sell it? I'm going to go over here. Or they're just playing the game right and everything else, not making any income. And I get people all the time, I'm just tired. I just got to sell this thing, but it's not worth anything. And some people just say, take every listing you can get, just to throw something on the wall. But I'm telling you, now I tell these people, you really got to at least play it straight for a year. and put the money in the till, let it go to the bottom line. The government's not really paying for the trip to Hawaii. You're paying it, you're just saving 30 cents on the dollar. But if you put it into the business and that dollar turns into $2, $3, or $4, well, you can buy our own trip. But a lot of people are still on this thing that the government or somebody's paying for these expensive. So, but you're exactly right, Mark, that, start planning ahead and play it straight to maximize the value.
Well, John, you're going to save 30 cents on that dollar until you're audited, and then it's going to cost you 60 cents to save that 30.
Amen. Yeah. And they don't see it.
You're not saving a damn dime, so to speak.
Yep. And they won't listen. Or I got a guy that hasn't filed taxes for 3 years. I mean, we've heard it all, but there's issues. But you can see why there's a lot of high mortality rate of small businesses. I think, like we've talked about, we just need, more folks like you to, train these people, educate them, and get them on track. I think there's a huge opportunity there for any small business, consulting and things.
Well, John, this has been just a great time together again. The information was simple, easy to follow. There's great stuff in here if everybody will go through and listen. Thanks again for being part of the team, coming on, sharing that stuff with us. And we will see everybody on the next episode. So, adios.
All right, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.